What is up, everybody? This is Ben. And I'm just chilling. It has been a long week. I'm still in my work clothes. But I'm messing around with this. Really just wanted to share some ideas I had about this jam, which is Generative. If you're familiar with the groovebox scene, you probably know about some Electron stuff, about even this new Polyand thing that just came out that use a lot of generative techniques to make music. And if you're a longtime electronic music fan, producer, whatever, probably familiar with like Brian Eno, stuff like that, generative music. And if you're not, it's real simple. It's just you set a set of parameters. For computer, randomizer, something like that, to make music on its own. And I really like playing it, sort of just to unwind. It's very relaxing, almost sort of meditative. So I'm just playing, the lighting was good, figured I'd fire up the camera and just chat about this, how I'm making generative music on the MC-101. Yeah, other than that, I had a little intro thing. Thanks everybody for the comments. I really appreciate you talking to me, interacting. I'm not always the most responsive person, and I have, a day job and a lot of stuff going on, but I do try my best, and I do appreciate the words of support when you give them. That's super, super rad. Yeah, y'all are just awesome. So, oh, and then also, if you like these techniques, I don't care if you like and subscribe. I have a new song coming out, which you can watch how I made it on the MC-101. But that's coming out. It sounds amazing. This guy, Rory Hinkel, mastered it. Absolute genius. I'll drop his links in the description. He is phenomenal. The song's phenomenal. Go stream it if it's out. It comes out May 27th. I don't know when this video will come out, but I'll put pre-save in the link and down there. I don't know how pre-save works. I'm not good at new stuff, but it's super rad. The song's super dope. Check it out. If you like the generative music that I'm playing now, it's completely different. If you don't like, I had clever stuff to say, but I forget it. It's cool. If you like me, you might like the song, and I'd appreciate it if you checked it out. That's all I have to say about that. Let's talk about, let's talk about my setup today. This, you might see I have this box here. It has the MC-101, 2 Launchpad X's, and over here, which you might not be able to see on the camera, is a Sensal Morph, which lets me do some pitch bend stuff, and anyway. This whole box that I made, I'm gonna talk about in other videos. It's not quite done yet, but it's where my MC-101 lives most of the time, and it's how I perform and play music, and since this was just sort of an impromptu video, I'm not taking anything out of the box. I'm just recording audio direct out of the MC-101 into my Roland VerseLab, which I'm using today as my audio interface because something about the connector, the camera connector kit that I have for my iPad wasn't jiving with my Focusrite Scarlett today, so I just scrapped it, and the VerseLab is working great as an audio interface. Okay, that's done. Whew. Now we can vibe. I've got coffee here. Let's talk about generative music on the MC-101. So, I'll play back what's playing generatively to start. There's elements of this that are fixed and elements that are completely random. I'm gonna show you how to do both. And what I was doing was I was just sort of jamming on top of it. Which I really, really like doing. It's kind of like playing jazz with people who don't know what music is. It's really interesting. The computer doesn't know exactly, doesn't have the same rhythms and foundations and ideas that you might have if you're playing with other musicians. I can't decide if it's like a useful musical exercise or if it's just encouraging me to play it safe, sort of, musically. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's not the greatest thing for my musical development, but I enjoy it, it's fun, and that's what matters to me right now. So, track 4, I just have the Classique acoustic piano, which is one of my favorite presets on the MC-101. Channel 3, I have a random melody, which I think sounds incredible. And it's just sort of, it's going off, and we're going to talk about how I did that. Channel 2, I have random chords that play, they're chords that I picked that play randomly. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then we'll talk about that. And then channel 1, I'm pretty proud of this part. It involved a little bit of math, which I will explain, not right at this moment, but I'll splice it into the video later. I'll explain the math, but it's super, super cool. Basically, it randomizes what sample plays. Now, you could randomize when the sample plays, but I personally, every 1 bar, it's playing a random short sample, like percussive, which I think are here. Nope, I was wrong. These are my 4 percussive samples, and they play at the start of every bar, and that gives me some semblance to keep track of where I am when I'm riffing along. And then every 2 bars, I think it's 2 bars, it's 2 or 4 bars, but I think it's 2, a long sample plays. And yeah, like this, like White Noise Biz, Twinkly Lights. This one's a train. That's great. These are all built into the MC-101, by the way. I'm not using any external samples because it's easier for me that way. And then this like whoosh, wind, whatever. So yeah, so when I hit play, it will play every time, every 1 bar is playing a random percussive sample, and every 2 bars is playing a random like atmospheric sample. That, I'm really proud of that. We're gonna talk about how to do that. But then altogether, it will just keep doing this for forever. And that's awesome to me. That's really fun. Yeah, and then you can just jam along with it. The pads in the 101 are fine to jam along with it. I get along really well with the launch pads. Obviously, I built a whole instrument around them. They're great. So yeah, let's talk about. Oh, do I have multi-effects on? I don't know. Nope, not really. It's the multi-mode filter, and by default, it doesn't do anything. So I'm just going to turn it off, so no one's confused. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's first talk about the melody, the random melody. This is pretty cool. It's on channel 3. I made this set a while ago, and like I said, I just decided to talk about it in vibe, so I'm just trying to remember what goes on here. But I think I remember most of it. So the first key is, at least as of, I'm on firmware 1.7, 1.71, whatever it is. If some feature that I talk about isn't available to you, it's probably because you need to update the firmware. Please check out Roland's website for that. I'm gonna hit, so the important part of the melody is that when you hit shift and either of these arrows, you can enter this menu, and if you scroll over, hopefully you can see that, one of the options is mode, and it probably says FWD, which means forward. It has a few options, and one of them is RND, which is random. So if I were to play this forward, it will play this melody, which is fine, and it sounds pretty. The sound that I'm using, by the way, is called Grassland Pluck. I think it's in the Poly Keys section. I use it a lot. It sounds really pretty, in my opinion. Hang on. Let's just set these both to, this is just, I set these so they'll play the active track. But yeah, so Grassland Pluck, great sound. It's probably a little reverb, maybe delay on that I added, but it's basic sound. Tweak it at your heart's content if you're not familiar how to do that. I have several videos about it. But yeah, so what I've done is with the step sequencer, I've given us a note pool. So every step, when I turn this mode to random, every step, it will pick one of these 64 steps and play it. And the different steps, you can put in whatever steps you want, and that will give it a pool of notes that it will play in randomly. And so for this, for the last, when I remember organizing this, it's basically just C. Yeah, I just played a C minor scale, I believe. Maybe a little chord at the end there, a little triad, and they all have slightly different velocities. I mean, and that's as simple as, right, hit a note and then hit a note. Like, that's literally how I put these in, right? Super simple, and it's nice and easy. And then I think here there might be some automation that I added. Let me see. Whoopsie daisies. I kept them all at 0.8 because it sounded nice and plucky there. But if I go here, we can see that I did add some automation for the filter knob, which is probably filter cutoff. And again, mess that in randomly, whatever you want, or you can use the motion designer, put it in randomly, and it'll give you, like here, if I play this straight, we don't have the same filter on all of them. Every step's a little different, and then when I play it randomly, we really get whatever. And if you want more empty space in your melody, just put more empty spots. If half of these are filled, 50% of the time a note will play, right? And then if you put a few more notes in, a little bit more than 50% of the time a note will play. And then the rest of the time it'll just play a rest. And that's it. That's super simple. And you get a really nice random melody from it. So now let's move to channel 2, and that's exactly the same principle. It's just we have this different sound, which sounds better at the higher octave. And each step has a chord on it. It has 4 notes, and if I play it straight, I do remember doing this. If I play this straight, it will sound nice. These are just standard. I picked the key of C minor when I started doing this for no reason. Just pick a key and put your chords in. There's only 2 chords there. Okay, that's fine. They are C, C, D sharp, and G, so that's just a C, C, D sharp. Yeah, it's a C minor chord. Yeah, it's a C minor. I don't know, I lost my mind for a second there. That's just a C minor chord. On the other one we have C, F, G sharp, F, which I think is just an F. It's G sharp, so it's an F minor chord. Just an F minor chord. So that's it. So when I first tried this, I had these notes held for the whole bar, and that didn't work so well with the randomizer. But when I switched it to just have a really long release and have these short, again with the 0.8 step length, then it worked really nicely. So the release is up really high. This patch is PWM Soft Pad 1, which I imagine is in the synth pad preset bank. Yeah, so I just stuck that in there, just like that, and it if you hit and change this to random, it'll randomly pick a step. And now, since in the sequence, 1 every 16 steps has a chord in it, you only get a note every 1 out of 16 steps. And it sounds nice, sounds like this. So then, with the melody, you get completely random melody and chords. You end up with weird modulations, whatever. Super neat. Yeah, so that's that. And then the only other piece is track 1. And this, guys, I'm proud of it. I really am. Picking random samples to play. So this one, so every clip can have its different play mode, forward, random, whatever. So this one is just in forward because I want some sound at the beginning of every bar to keep some semblance of time. And this is, again, like you're setting up the parameters for the computer to make music with, and you massage those into what you want. So this is what I wanted. So these are, I can tell you, this is acoustic bass noise 1. These are all inbuilt to it's in like the FX bank or something, or the SFX bank. Acoustic bass noise 1, steel guitar noise 1, atmosphere, and white noise 4. And I really like white noise 4. I use this in everything. Both of these actually, atmosphere. Like, I love those. And these are just like guitar, like the sound of like fretting a guitar. And then I have some longer samples here, which are the same thing. That one's called Rain, Wind Chimes, Train, and Wind. And now it's important to note that the way that my technique for randomizing samples goes is that they all need to be in the same mute group. These are all in mute group 3. These are all in mute group 2. And a mute group, or it's like a choke group on other machines, is just when one sample plays, it stops the other ones in that group from playing. And what I realized when I was just messing around was that this is the key, is that there's a priority here. If you play 4 samples at the same time, in fact, if you play 16 samples at the same time, and they're all in the same choke group, the last one, the one, I think, I checked this, but I think the order is that, like, it goes like this. Like, if you play all of 8 of these at the same time, and they're all in the same group, this one is the one that you'll hear. If you play all of these at the same time, this one is the one that you'll hear. If you play all of them at the same time, and they're all in the same mute group, you're only gonna hear one of them, and it's gonna be this last one. The important bit is that it's always the rightmost top one, okay? But the important thing is that there is an order. And so we can use that, and in the newest firmware, every step you get, if I hit this step, you get a mute percentage. Okay, so the mute percentage is the key, because what we do then is we do this one. If we play all of them, and this one is the highest priority. So if this one plays, it's the only one you'll hear. If this one doesn't play and this one plays, this is the only one you'll hear. It doesn't matter what you play underneath it. And then so on down the line, so that you'll only hear this one if none of these 3 play. So now, all we need is a little bit of math to figure out what mute percentage to set each of these at, so that it will play roughly 1/4 of the time, each one of these. And that's what happens on both of these. There's this set of 4 and this set of 4. And yeah, then it's all just a little bit about math. So knowing that, I can defend my math if you want. I will splice that into the video, but I'll just tell you the numbers that I have to make 4 samples. You could do this for 2 samples or 3 samples. 2 samples is easy. Set the high priority one to play 50% of the time, and the next lowest one to play 100% of the time. So the lowest one will always be playing, but the higher priority one will always choke it if it plays, but it will only play 50% of the time. So 50% of the time you get one, 50% of the time you get the other. 3 of them, you can do the math out. I don't have it in my head. I have the math out for 4 of them because that's what's programmed in here. That math is on my iPad. I'll figure out how to show it to you. But it's generalizable. I could probably post in a comment how to do 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, what probabilities to use. But for this one, the highest probability, the mute we set at 75%. So there's a 75% chance this one doesn't play, and then a 25% chance that it does play. On the 25% chance that it does play, we'll hear it. So now let's go to the next sound here. Go to our sequence, we go here. The mute you see is at 66%. Again, I can prove this and I probably will put it in the video, but for the moment you can take my word, 66% of the time this will not play. 33% of the time it will play. So 33% of the time it plays. By 75% of the time the other one doesn't play, the higher priority one doesn't play. That's how often you hear this, and that works out to 25%. Still with me? I hope so. I hope that was explained okay. If not, I will try to explain better in the comments or in another section. But now we come to this one. This second to last one plays 50% of the time. So it plays 50% of the time. If this plays and the other one doesn't play, the next one up the chain doesn't play, 66% chance, and the one above that doesn't play, 75% chance that it doesn't play, then you hear this sound. And that's it. That works out to 25% of the time. And now, this one, check the sequence, mute 0. This one always plays. It will always play, but there's a 75% chance at least one of the other ones will play. And they will override this one, but a 25% chance none of the other ones will play, and you'll hear this one. And that's how you randomly choose between 4 different samples on the MC-101. All right, this is Ben from the slight future. I've got my iPad now. I'm not great at screen recording here, and I'm not necessarily great at probability or explaining probability, but I'm gonna do my best, so at least hopefully it's a little bit helpful. So we're gonna start real quick. Let P of 1 equal the probability that sample 1 triggers, or that sample 1 is the one that we hear, okay? And then we're gonna let P1S be the probability set point that we put into the MC-101. So we have P of 1 is the one probability that we hear it, and P1S is the probability that we set. And it'll be the same for all the other ones. And we're gonna define sample 1 to be the highest priority one, and sample 4 to be the lowest priority, okay? So P of 1 is simple enough. It's just equal to P1S. So if sample 1 plays, then that's the one that we're gonna hear. P of 2, what do we hear sample 2? The second highest priority one is just a tiny bit more complicated. It's 1 minus P1S, the probability that sample 1 doesn't trigger, times P2S, which is the probability that sample 2 does trigger. So it's the probability that sample 1 doesn't trigger times the probability that sample 2 does trigger, and that we express like this. P of 3, same thing, is the probability that sample 1 doesn't trigger, 1 minus P1S, times the probability that sample 2 doesn't trigger, times the probability that sample 3 triggers. Now, P of 4, same deal. Sample 1 doesn't trigger, sample 2 doesn't trigger, sample 3 doesn't trigger, sample 4 does trigger. That's the probability that we hear sample 4. Now, we've got a nice system of equations here. I'm gonna switch colors, and we're gonna just say that we want P of 1, probability that we hear sample 1, to be equal to P of 2 equals to P of 3 equals to P of 4 equals 0.25, or a 25% chance for each sample. Now, we're gonna take P of 1, we want it to be equal to 0.25. We know from up here that P of 1 is just equal to P1S, so we just bring that equation down here, and we get 0.25 equals P1S. So we can set 25% probability that it plays in the MC-101. Now, on the MC-101, it's mute probability, so you actually set the probability that it doesn't play, okay? So on the MC-101, we set that as 75, not 25, but it's the same number, it's just flipped over. It's on the MC-101, it's probability that it doesn't play. On the math I'm doing, it's probability that it does play. So P of 2, we want that to be equal to 0.25 as well. We know from our equation up here that P of 2 is equal to this set of values, this expression, so we bring that down here. And then we know from right here that P1S is 0.25, so we take 0.25, we stick it in there, we solve, and we end up with P2S is 0.33 repeating, or as play probability, as mute probability, that's 0.67. So now, P of 3, same deal. We want that to be 0.25. We have our expression for it from up here, and we solve and we get P3S should be 0.5. Now 0.5 flipped over is still 0.5. I hope I kept recording. 0.5 flipped over is still 0.5. So finally, I didn't write this one out, but it does come out like you'd hope. P of 4, to get that to 0.25, we just set our probability equal to 1. And you could solve this equation and you'll get the same thing, but you set it equal, you get 1. That means if all 3 of the other samples don't play, you still get sample 4 playing, and that's exactly what we want. And that means that each sample should have a 25% chance of playing, and that's exactly what we wanted. And now we have a random sample selection on the MC-101, and that's pretty rad. Now, if you wanted other things, if you wanted like one to trigger most of the time and the other one's only sometimes, you just plug those whatever numbers you want into these equations and you're all set. You can also do this for more and you're good to go. If you need help with that, you can ask in the comments. I will try to help. I hope that was helpful. I hope I was right. If I wasn't, let me know. But yeah, I hope that's useful. Back to the video. And I guess that's my whole video. Like I said, this was kind of a quick one, just hanging out. I hope that it's useful to you. If you've been staring covetously at some of those electron boxes, the Syntact, I know Polyend has one, even the model cycles, model samples, I hope this helps ease your desire to spend more money. I'm a big fan of doing what you can with what you have. So I hope this helps. I hope this is useful to you. And if you are really aching after like a model cycles or even the Syntact, I might have good news for you in the next couple weeks. But I'm still working on that. But yeah, that's it. I hope this was good, useful. I'm just gonna keep jamming a little bit because it makes me feel good.